Of pandemic definitions, and this is actually going to be the last video in this series, and then I'm going to move into some other videos. In fact, I'm doing one more later this afternoon, and the title is How Could Coronavirus Impact You? And that's just going to be talking about some basic ways that some things that you might expect to see happen and things like that. So if that is interesting to you, stay tuned for that. And I wanted to touch base that I have separated these playlists, and they'll be before a pandemic, during a pandemic, and after a pandemic. And this last one is going to go in the during a pandemic. Again, not saying that we are currently experiencing a pandemic, but if you were in the middle of an epidemic or a pandemic, these definitions would apply, and that's why I'm moving it there. So let me get into that. Okay, particle size, and well, let me just go through it and you'll understand. Particle size is a notion introduced for comparing dimensions of solid particles, liquid particles, or gaseous particles. And that's important because that's why we keep hearing, well, surgical masks aren't really 100% effective. They are effective if you are infected. They are helpful in keeping you from spreading it to other people. But as far as breathing in and providing any real level of protection, that's questionable. That's when you would want to move into an N95 or higher mask. So filter ratings, and that's how they're kind of making that assessment. It's based on the filter rating, helps you to decide how small the particles are that are getting filtered out. So I thought I'd just kind of quickly touch on the MERV ratings for certain things. I'm going to be doing a video next week about kind of a DIY face mask if you found yourself in a pinch where you just couldn't find anything, how you might be able to create one for yourself. This was an idea from another YouTuber that I kind of took and tweaked a little bit, and I'll put his original video down below. But MERV 1 through 4 is going to be anything that's 3 to 10 microns. So it's going to capture 20% of large particles. MERV 5 through 7, 20 to 69. MERV 8 to 10, approximately 85% of large particles, and 50% of small particles, 1 to 3 microns, are captured. So in this instance, because you're looking at a virus particle, which is so very small, and then of course, it's usually if the transmission risk is that you're inhaling it, obviously it's going to be attached to something else. So you're not just looking at the size of the viral particle, but you're looking at the size of the thing that it's attached to. So of course the hope would be that you were in excess or at a micron size of 3. And so to that end, your safest bet would be a MERV 13 filter. So if you just Google on Amazon, you can see there are many MERV 13 filters, and I'll show you next week what to do with them. I would personally recommend picking some up. They have them everywhere: Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart. Maybe pick up 1 or 2 in case you find yourself in a situation where you don't have a mask and you need one. And if you don't use them for a mask, you can just use them in your house. Okay, we hear PPE a lot, and that's personal protective equipment. Is protective clothing, helmets, goggles, or other garments or equipment designed to protect the wearer's body from injury or infection. The hazards addressed by protective equipment include physical, electrical, heat, biohazards, and airborne particulate matter. So PPE is what we're talking about, right? The masks, goggles, safety goggles, gloves, Tyvek suit, any and all of those things fall under the category of PPE, personal protective equipment. And that's something right now that they are trying to reserve, of course, for frontline responders, which makes sense because if they get sick and they can't help people that are sick, that could present a much larger problem than we currently seem to be facing. All right, now N95, and if you can find them, I would say buy them, but good luck, I don't think you can find them. That is the level of mask that you will probably see people, frontline responders wearing, okay, because it provides a lot of protection. And it says N95 respirators is a respiratory protective device designed to achieve a very close facial fit and very efficient filtration of airborne particles. The N95 designation means that when subjected to careful testing, the respirator blocks at least 95% of very small 0.3 micron test particles. And I'm sorry, earlier I said 3 microns, and it's not, it's 0.3. So The N95 is fantastic. It's better than a surgical mask for a couple of reasons. Number one, it provides a higher level of filtration, but also there's a tight seal and there's a metal band that you can pinch to sort of get a more customized fit to your face. If that all fails, you know, you can always take medical tape and go around the outside so that you don't have any contamination coming in from the side. And of course, that would be appropriate even with a surgical mask. All right, surgical mask is also known as a procedure mask or a medical mask, and that's the one that's sort of, you know, it's flat and it has the elastic loops and it looks like it has three sort of, you know, tucked areas. It's basically the one you would see at a hospital. Is intended to be worn by health professionals during surgery and during nursing to catch the bacteria shed in liquid droplets and aerosols from the wearer's mouth and nose. So kind of what we touched on earlier. Now, a dust mask, which is something that we see people kind of wearing a lot, let me go over what it is a flexible pad held over the nose and mouth by elastic rubber straps to protect against dust encountered during construction or cleaning activities, such as dust from drywall, brick, fiberglass, etc., or sweeping. Well, let me read the rest of it. Dust masks and filters should be discarded after each encounter. That goes for any kind of surgical mask or N95 mask as well. That is a one-time use only. You know, take it off as you're leaning forward after you've cleaned your hands and dispose of it. That is a one-time only situation. So if you're buying them, make sure that you have enough so that, you know, you can use them daily. Regardless of usage, masks should be discarded when used beyond 8 hours, and that's because they become wet just from the vapor of your breath. I don't think that it is responsible to say that a dust mask is going to provide the level of protection and filtration required to protect you from a virus. Is it better than nothing? Maybe. I wouldn't want to gamble with that personally, so I would try to get my hands on a more protective mask like an N95. And again, I will address how you can sort of make a DIY one next week. All right, and then a gas mask, which, you know, I don't know. I don't know. It says a protective mask used to cover a person's face as a defense against poisonous gas. And, you know, we're not there. So that's not really appropriate in this situation. That said, I feel that you would be perfectly safe wearing such a thing. But, you know, how many people do you know that have gas masks? All right, now I wanted to go over gloves a little bit because there are so many terms, and unless you work in the medical field, it's probably confusing for you the way that it was for me. So I thought, let me dive into that for a minute. So sterile gloves are defined as sterile when they meet the FDA standards for sterilization techniques. It is important to note that non-sterile gloves are typically used for non-surgical medical procedures and examination, and sterile gloves are used to carry out surgical procedures. So I would assume that that means that one is probably thicker than another or manufactured to a different standard than another. Read between the lines here, sterile gloves are going to provide more protection. It feels that that's what's being implied here. Nitrile gloves, and it says nitrile is the superior material for today's disposable gloves. Nitrile, also known as NBR, is a form of synthetic rubber with an unusually high resistance to oil, fuel, and other chemicals. The more nitrile within the polymer, the greater the protection from oils. Okay, so nitrile gloves would seem to provide an appropriate level of protection against you touching a contaminated surface, any kind of fomite, anything like that, or, you know, even person-to-person contact, shaking hands, which I would discourage for right now. This is the year of the, actually maybe just the elbow bump, definitely not the handshake. Eyewear protection, and that is going to be, you know, anything from swimming goggles to the protective goggles that you'll see when people are using when they're sanding or things like that. Eye protection is a type of personal protective equipment. We touched on that earlier, designed to prevent injury to the eye. There is almost zero speculation at this time that this coronavirus can enter and make contact with your ocular membranes, your eyes. So you can wear a face mask and gloves all you want, but if somebody coughs and it makes contact with your eye, that's not going to be a good situation for you. And so, for example, the glasses that I'm wearing, they would provide direct frontal contact, maybe, but as you can see, I'd have an exposure from the top, bottom, and both sides. So this would not be ideal. Now, I will say that if you have children that you're concerned about protecting, you know, the bigger safety goggle type things are really made for adult size faces. So if you feel that you want to buy something to protect your children's eyes, swim goggles are going to be a safe bet, because those are going to fit and they can be cinched down from the back to provide that really tight fit with that suction cup. That said, they're not single use. I mean, unless you have a, you know, unlimited amount of money, and it is something that you would have to sterilize after removing. So you'd have to be very, very careful about taking them off and putting them immediately into maybe some kind of a bleach water type of a situation and letting them sit and then pulling them out and rinsing them for the next use. So something to think about. So again, masks, single use. Gloves, single use. Eyewear protection, multiple uses, but you have to be very, very careful about how you take it off, because you don't want to contaminate yourself. All right, and then Tyvek Suits are the last one. And it says Tyvek Suits have become the embodiment of safety. The material was created from a DuPont discovery in 1955. And the limited use protective suits are made of spunsed polyethylene and are made to keep particulate matter and light oil and liquid away from the wearer. Okay, so no surprises there. That is intended to keep stuff off of you. Just, it's like a giant glove, but for your body. So that's what a Tyvek suit is. Now, if you want, you can look on Amazon. There are some, and I'm not going to get involved in putting links to products and doing any of that, because none of these videos are being filmed in an attempt to generate money or views or subscribers or anything like that. This is just me giving you information that I looked up for myself and thought, okay, that's clarifying for me, and potentially it would be for other people. So if you just go to Amazon and you type in, you know, I would start by looking for N95s. I highly doubt you will find them on Amazon because they've been sold out for a very long time. You could go and check your local. If you try your big box stores, I think you're gonna have the same situation. So any Lowe's, Home Depot, doubt you'll find it there, but maybe. You could check your Ace local hardware, any local or regional hardware stores that you have, they might still have them. As far as gloves are concerned, let me go back here for a second. I think I would look for sterile nitrile gloves if I were still looking for them. I'm not, because I have had these things for a very, very long time as a result of being someone who just likes to be prepared. I worked with the Red Cross for very many years in emergency response, so it's just kind of ingrained in my DNA. And then eyewear protection, we kind of touched on that, and that would be the goggles if you're buying them for a little person, and then the, you know, actual safety industrial goggles for an adult. And with respect to the MERV filters, MERV 13 filters, they are still available pretty much everywhere. And Tyvek Suits, you can still buy those on Amazon, and if you can't, even I think I was 2 days out the other day looking for something else, and I saw a whole bunch of Tyvek Suits at, where was I? At Lowe's. So those are still available if you feel that you need that. Now, you would only need that if you meant to leave your home. So if you plan to shelter in place and not be going in and out, maybe this is not necessary. I would say at least have some on hand if you believe that this will become a larger problem globally, so that one person in your home could go out and potentially maybe get more supplies or food if it comes to that. Again, none of this said in an attempt to instill panic, just prepared. Let's be prepared. And you know, this is all part of kind of what I said I actually filmed the video that's gonna come out after this. I already filmed it. And you know, I said that the government has a responsibility to tell you the truth and to make their preparations, and you have a responsibility to yourself and your family to make sure that you are acting in the best interest of your family. So even if you buy these things and you don't use them for now, you know, you can always use them for projects over the summer and things like that. So no harm, no foul, always better to be prepared. I hope you guys found that helpful. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and if you want to get notified when I put the new videos up, just click subscribe and then click that little bell and it'll send you a notification. If you think you know people who can benefit from this kind of information, I would love it if you would share it. And I appreciate you spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next video, and that will be my final video for today. Bye guys.